I've just read to you 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. There's all of these people who have all of these ideas of what manhood is. But the Bible right here and in other places within the text gives us a description of what a man is. Amen. It gives us a description of what a man is. And one of the reasons why this is important is because we got these warped ideas of manhood, and we pass on these warped ideas of manhood to our children. And then the children, when they go out and get into a relationship or whatever else, they're bringing their warped conception of manhood into that relationship. Amen. And then they're not focused. And then they start looking for the wrong things. So understanding that, we've got all of these different people. And what I've noticed with most men is when they are strong in one area, they try to make manhood about everything about that area that they are strong at. Especially when I've known men who have had a whole bunch of children, they end up basing their manhood off of their ability to have kids. Amen. So they make virility and fertility the personification of manhood. But the whole problem is, does that hold up? Does that hold up? Because if that is truly a definition of manhood, then you got to ask yourself, is Jesus a man? Amen. Because how many kids did Jesus have? Amen. And then also you got to ask yourself, is the Apostle Paul a man? Amen. Because how many kids did the Apostle Paul have? So it's real funny how we get. And then also you got to think of yourself, if you got a great man who does all of these great things and he can fight and he can earn money and everything, and just him and his kids don't have any children of their own, does that mean he's not a man? It's kind of funny our definitions of manhood. The second thing that we do to kind of define manhood is that we focus on the man's ability to earn money and provide security for his family. Amen. A man's ability to earn money and provide security for his family. But if you think about it like this, see, I always say, well, excuse me, I stole this from a guy named Dr. James White. And he always says that inconsistency is the first sign of failed argumentation. So what he's trying to say is, if you're trying to say you believe in something, whatever you say you believe in, you need to be consistent with it. Like if it's true, it needs to be true from the root to the tooth. Amen. Amen. If it's not true from the root to the tooth, then it's really not as true as you say it is. So if you want to make, and this is a big one with Steve Harvey and the other guys that are, there's a big focus, especially with prosperity preaching, there's a big focus on, if you're a real man, you can earn a living and you provide security for your family. But here's a problem with that definition. What about the veteran? Amen? What about the veteran who gets blown up in an IED and he's got one arm? Amen? And he can't work, but he did that defending his country. Amen? And then you know that the money that he gets from that, he's going to get money, but it's not going to be an overabundant amount of money. Amen? Amen. So understanding that, we can go, if we want to use that definition, Donald Trump can provide for hundreds of families, but never been in a war and never been near a fight. So if we're going to define man by his ability to provide security, if we're going to define man by his ability to provide and make money, then in that definition, Donald Trump, who's never been to battle, is more of a man than the veteran. Next slide. Yeah, there you go. The veteran who only has one limb left. So that definition of manhood does not stand up either. Another definition of manhood that people like to throw out there is if a man can fight. Oh man, I thought that was, when I was younger, I thought that was the thing right there. If a man could fight, then he's really a man. Amen. But my man Mike Tyson here, he's been through 3 or 4 failed marriages. He's failed as an entrepreneur. He's failed as a father. He's failed in all these things. He is a felonious rapist. And he's failed in all of these other things of manhood. Yet, if me and Mike Tyson had a fight, I doubt I would last 90 seconds. Amen. If Mike Tyson walked up in here right now, amen, and I gave it my all, Kim better call the popo. Amen. Because it ain't going to last too long. I would try my best, but it ain't going to last probably over 90 seconds. Amen. Even with him being out of shape, that's the former world heavyweight champion. Amen. He been in 1,000 fights, and I've been in 12. Amen. So what I'm trying to share with you is, in that case, using that definition, Mike Tyson is more of a man than many people, even though he has all of these failed marriages, all of these family issues, all of felonious rapists, all of these things. So if that's the definition of a man, then that is not consistent either. It doesn't make good sense. I know a retired Army intelligence officer who fits many of the other areas of manhood. He's in great shape, knows some martial arts and earns a living and all of these other things, provides for his family. But his wife has to fix everything in the house for him. Amen. He can't fix nothing. He's in the house like Edward Scissorhands. You see what I'm saying? He can't fix a thing. So his wife has to do all of the fix-it jobs for him in the house. Does that make him less of a man? See, I like the Bible's overarching definition of manhood. Manhood, you can read it right here in 1 Kings chapter 2, is defined biblically by obedience to God. Let me say that 2 more times. Manhood is defined in the text by obedience to God. Let me say that 1 more time. Manhood right there in the text is defined by obedience to God. You see David at the end of his life talking to Solomon and charging Solomon, and he tells Solomon, show thyself a man. But he doesn't just leave him there right there. He goes on and says, show thyself a man and keep the commandments. And keep the commandments. Obey God. And look how beautiful that is. You don't have to have an ounce of testosterone in your body, and you can still be obedient to God. You can have no limbs and no job and still be obedient to God. You can have the pugilistic skill of Pee Wee Herman and still be obedient to God. You can have the same fix-it ability as Edward Scissorhands and still be obedient to God. Obedience is better than sacrifice and the false pretense of what the worldly people call manhood. Obedience in the garden simply meant not eating that fruit. Amen. Obedience from the garden until Moses simply meant following the conscience that God gave you. After our conscience got dull from not listening to God, because that's what happens when you don't listen to God. Your conscience gets dull. And you can't hear him anymore. You can't even hear. Have you ever noticed when the first time you sinned, you felt really, really bad about something? Amen. But then after the second, third, fourth, fifth time you sinned, then you were like, you stopped even hearing that little voice saying, stop that, don't do that. Because you've gotten used to doing it. Amen. So the conscience, when man stopped listening to his conscience, then guess what God did to bless you? He sent Moses with the law. And the law reminded you of what your conscience was already telling you. Amen. So then under the law, obedience meant, manhood meant following the law. Before that, manhood meant following your God-given conscience. Before that, manhood meant not eating that fruit. But then when Jesus came, Jesus, the personification of manhood. And why was Jesus the personification of manhood? Because he is the only man to be perfectly obedient. He's the only man that did everything when he was supposed to do. Amen. All other men fail. And when you stop doing what God tells you to do, then you stop being a man. You stop being a man. In that moment of disobedience, you become an animal. Amen? Because guess what animals do? Animals, they don't do things with the higher consciousness, with the higher thought. Amen? They just are following their nature. But God has given us more than that. That's why we are different than all of creation. We are made in the image and likeness of God. And when we follow God, we are the definition of manhood. Jesus was the personification of manhood. Amen. Amen. And all of those laws got boiled down to a simple law. Love thy brother. Love thy brother. Amen. And the God type of love is not just hugs and kisses. Amen. The God type of love will share the gospel with people who don't want to hear it. Amen. God's type of love is not this curly, huggy type of love. God's type of love is truth. Amen. So Jesus is this personification of love. And he's boiled everything down for us in John chapter 13, verse 34. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. It's amazing though. Jesus, it was almost being sarcastic there. You know why? Because it's not a new commandment. That commandment to love was in the Old Testament. It just, they weren't following it. They weren't doing it. Amen. So he brings it back again. He says, a new commandment I give unto you. Love your brother. Love your brother. And when we understand that, see, it was amazing. We have a choice right now. We can be like Solomon. Because Solomon heard David's charge. And he heard it in the moment. And we can hear that charge and we can hear it in the moment. But somewhere along the line, Solomon lost what David told him to do. Because you see in Solomon's history, Solomon getting caught up in all kind of women. He gets caught up in all kind of riches and women and what the Bible calls strange women. Amen. Women from other countries. Women making all of these treaties and making all of these moral compromises. That's what Solomon departed from what David charged him to do. But let me give you some good news. In the waning days of his life, Solomon, who is considered the second wisest man to ever walk the earth, closes the book of Ecclesiastes just like this. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 13 and 14, but it's in your notes. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So at the end of Ecclesiastes, you see Solomon charging Israel and charging all of the readers of the book of Ecclesiastes. What is he telling them? The same thing his daddy told him. Fear the Lord and keep his commandments. Amen? Amen? For us, Jesus boiled it all down to very simply following his spirit and being led to love your brother. Love our brother. Then we will be what God has called us to do. The whole duty of a man is to love. The whole duty of a man is to love. And in that love, manhood is truly captured. Yes. Amen. Can we all bow our heads?